Hi there, this is Teri from Stamping Magic. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have another Christmas card to share with you. This one uses the Seasonal Wreath Embossing Folder and I've watercoloured this. I've also used the Snowfront stamp set, and for the sentiment I've used the Greatest Part of Christmas Host stamp set. The paper is from the Let It Snow Specialty Designer Series paper pack. So let's get started. These are all the measurements you need for the various elements required to create this project. So if you're interested in reproducing it, you can take a screenshot and refer to it later. I'm going to start by stamping the sentiment, and this comes from the Greatest Part of Christmas Host stamp set. I'm going to use Coastal Cabana ink, and I'm just stamping on a scrap of normal weight Whisper White card. And I'm going to cut this out using one of the Ornate Frames dies. This is the Snowfront stamp set, and I'm just using the deer and a couple of the smaller trees. I'm starting with Mossy Meadow ink, and I'm going to use first and second generation stamping. Then I'm going to switch to Pear Pizzazz and I'll do the same thing, first and second generation stamping. And then finally I'll stamp the deer using Early Espresso ink. The panel will be die cut using one of the Stitched Shapes framelit dies, and this is one up from the smallest. Next I'll add a little Coastal Cabana ink to the sky, and I'm just applying this using a sponge dauber. And to finish off this little panel, I'm going to add some of our stamping ice glitter. Now I'm just applying my fine tip glue pen where I want the glitter to be, and then I can tip the glitter over, remove the excess, and we're done. Here is my die cut sentiment. I've also die cut a piece of real red cardstock with the same die. Now I've cut the ends off this and I'm going to add them to the ends of my sentiment, and this will just frame the sentiment a little and make it stand out a bit more against the paper. This is the Seasonal Wreath Embossing Folder, and it's a thicker one, so I only need my Big Shot platform and one acrylic plate to run this through. Now I'm using normal weight Whisper White cardstock, and before I emboss it I'm just going to lightly spritz it with water. Then I can place my cardstock in the folder so the wreath is positioned at the top of it, and then run it through. Now my acrylic plate is positioned just after the wreath. I don't want to emboss the bottom edge of the folder onto my cardstock. I'm using my aqua painter to watercolour, and this has the water in the barrel. You just squeeze it lightly and that will release some through to the nib. I'm using Pear Pizzazz ink to start off with, and I've just squeezed it from the bottom to transfer some ink to the lid, which I'll use as a palette. Now all I'm going to do to start off with is watercolour all the larger leaves in the Pear Pizzazz ink. Now I'm going to speed this up and I'm going to cut a lot of it out because it's all the same. I'm just lightly colouring each of those leaves with the ink. And this is what it looks like once I've finished that first layer. But I'm going to give my ink pad another squeeze to get some of the darker, more intense ink. And I'm going to do a second layer. And all I'm going to do are go over those middle lines on each of the leaves, and then I'm also going to add a little darker colour at the base of each leaf. And this is what it looks like after that second layer. It looks quite messy actually, but it does come together at the end. Now I finished with the pear pizzazz ink, and I'm going to use Mossy Meadow next. And this is just a darker green, so we'll have a little contrast here in tones. And I'm going to use this to colour all the smaller leaves. And this will be my final layer. And this is how it looks once it's complete. Now I'm going to put this back inside my embossing folder and run it through once more. You'll find that as you watercolour you lose some of that definition on the embossing, so it's worth doing it a second time once you've finished. Right, we can now start putting this card together. I have a card base in Real Red, and this is just a half a sheet of standard cardstock. Then I have a Coastal Cabana mat to go underneath my embossed mat. I have a small piece of the Designer Series paper, and I'm going to layer this onto another small Coastal Cabana mat, just so there's a border of the Coastal Cabana showing on the top only. Then I can add this to my embossed panel. This panel can then be added to the front of the card base. I have a white mat for inside the card, and I'm going to decorate this with another strip of the matching Designer Series paper, which I've added to a little strip of Coastal Cabana. This can then be positioned inside the card base. I've layered the little snow front circle onto a Real Red scallop circle, and this was cut using one of the layering circles dies, the 4th size up from the smallest. I can now go ahead and position my image panel and my sentiment panel. As a final finishing touch, I'm going to add some of our red rhinestones to the wreath. And that's it, we're all done. It's a really pretty card. And here's my original one again. I'm not sure which colourway I prefer. I think maybe the first one with the Real Red and the balmy blue. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notifications bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. Bye for now.